Just thinking a little bit about the current war in Iran, and although it's in fairly early stages in terms of time, the amount of destruction and the intensity of the bombing is such that large portions of cities have been evacuated or and damaged, significantly. Iran's a very large country, both in terms of geography and in terms of population, with about 90 million people. And because of that, you know, if if there isn't a stable and you know agreed upon by consensus leader that emerges out of this current period, and if there's civil war or conflicts between different factions, or even just a prolonged battle for who should lead the country, or even just a prolonged bombing for a long time, or um, the possibility of a refugee crisis and sustained instability in that area is very high. Um, you know, if you looked at what happened in Syria, a refugee crisis in Syria, it gives us kind of a bit of an idea of what things could look like in Iran. Although Syria is much smaller in terms of population, so a crisis in Iran could be much more severe. Um, and what we saw with Syria's outflows is eventually a lot of those people made their way to Europe, and generally the collapse of kind of strong authority in Syria and the civil war there led to the rise of right wing governments in Europe, the refugee crisis, kind of um, turning against kind of multiculturalism in many places that previously had um, more openness to it, or where those societies were becoming more pluralistic. Just a lot of turmoil in the West. I mean, that's a huge part of what we're experiencing right now is because of those refugee outflows from Syria at the time. If 10 million people leave Iran, then you could very much have a repeat of the same thing, but with even less kind of generosity or ability to absorb those refugees than in the past, which could be a serious political crisis of legitimacy, a serious humanitarian crisis, and a major problem. Like, once you light the spark, and if you don't really know whether the forest that you're lighting the spark in is dry or not, and I think that Americans clearly didn't know whether the forest was dry or not, you lose control of it quickly. There's no telling what could happen. And just one nugget of information in Iran, because of the decades of instability in Afghanistan. There's a large Afghan refugee population, people who often work in the cities, millions of people there, and if those people, significant portions uh, of Afghani refugees flee Iran, then you've got what they call a dual displacement crisis, where Iranians are fleeing the cities, and then eventually leaving for Turkey or Pakistan or other places, and then eventually into Europe and around the world, kind of straining the budgets and the cultures of different countries. And you've got two huge groups moving at the same time, and you've got a real serious problem. I mean, that's just one example of all of the possible unintended consequences, and a reasonably likely one that we have a long history of experiencing, and certainly would be a major problem for America and other countries as well. Anyway, hopefully it won't come to that.